I wanted to make this video about how work changes us. And this is on my mind, especially on a day like today when it's the weekend. I woke up without an alarm. I don't have any work this morning. And it makes me think about how much work changes us. When I first started my career, I think back now on the things that excited me about work. For example, I was really excited to have email on my phone. Ooh, there's a bee. I don't know if you guys saw that in the camera. A bee just passed right in front of me. Hopefully he's going to keep going and not come back. I guess he wanted to make his little YouTube appearance. When I started my career, I was just excited about working and everything that we've heard about, and leading up to that, schooling, everything funneled you and channeled all of your effort into preparing for a life of work. And so that meant, being in the loop and feeling like I know what's going on, and being organized and having my things that I'm working on, carrying my work bag and getting dressed up to go to work. I also was excited to wear blazers. I started my career in accounting as an auditor in professional services. I had clients early on in my career. That was just what I saw. Everyone was dressed in business casual or business formal in suits, running to meetings, being very busy, checking emails, and that's what I thought was normal. I thought everyone was doing that, and so that was my perception of what work would look like, and I internalized that this is what I should be excited about. I know that probably sounds very dorky or corny, but I'd love to hear from you guys too. What was your early perception of work, and how did some of that change your habits eventually? The other thing about work that I think changes people is the whole process around PTO. You have an idea of when you'd like to take some time off. You reach out to your boss, or if there's a calendar for the team, you submit your time. Maybe it needs to be approved by someone and they need to provide you feedback if you can actually take the time or not. Depending on what's going on, maybe it's a family trip, maybe it's hanging out with your friends, college friends you haven't seen in a while and looking to catch up with, or just some time alone. Maybe it's time to do something fun. But the way that's organized and orchestrated just doesn't work like real life. When real life happens, sometimes you have no warning. And it could be a family member who gets sick. Maybe your child is in school and is sick and you need to pick them up. It could be anything unexpected. And to think that you have to go through the process to get time off by requesting and waiting to hear back, and maybe even juggling the calendars of other colleagues to see who can cover the time and cover the work. Maybe days are passing until you actually hear back if you are allowed to take the time off or not. But that's not real life. I think this process really makes you shift how you handle those things when they come up. Instead of prioritizing the family event or the time that's needed for something personal for yourself, we try to figure out a way to quote unquote get it approved, even if there's no one in your life who needs to be granting you permission except for you. But we still run it through the similar kind of lens, waiting on someone to tell us that it's okay to have time for ourselves. It's okay to prioritize something that's important to us. And I just don't think that's sustainable. I think at some point life speeds up in a way, or things will happen that aren't waiting. Those things are not waiting for you for the perfect moment, the perfect time, the approval when some person at work can cover for you. It just doesn't work that way. Another thing about work is around family trade-offs and decisions you need to make. I feel like it also changes your reality and the way that you react when things happen in the lives of people that you care about and family members. I know in my situation, as someone from the Caribbean and growing up in the US and starting a career in America, when I was earlier in my career, my grandparents were back home in the Caribbean and I had limited PTO time. And so I would have to allocate a lot of that PTO time to going back and visiting them and spending time with them. And I've seen something similar with colleagues at work over the years, colleagues who are from different countries, and every year they use the limited PTO that they have to visit family back home. And depending on how far away the family is, you think about the time it takes to fly, a number of days to get over jet lag, actually having time to spend with family. And I'm sure it goes by so quickly. That was always the case for us as a family. And then you're preparing to come back, and then you get right back into the groove. The other thing I've seen too is as folks have aging parents, right? And imagine having aging parents who are overseas and far away from you and you can't quickly get to them. That's another thing because those emergencies, those hospital visits, they come unannounced. You never know when that time is going to happen or when that time is going to show up. Oops, I almost shot my phone there, but I think I have it under control now. It's in front of a rock here, trying to stabilize it. Hopefully I can make it through this video. There's limited time and work is not about prioritizing those times. It's not about prioritizing the family time, the trade-offs you're making, the PTO you have to take, and how it tells you you have to address those things, I think really changes people's perception about what they should prioritize and how they should do it. And I think the same thing happens when people are building their own family or building their own life. In a lot of ways, you find that work comes into conflict with that. Think about how it is when you are raising a family, you have small kids, and you're working in corporate America. The demands of the job usually take so much of your time that you have limited time to do the things you need to do, to show up, trying to juggle daycare and raising the kids, taking them to school. Maybe your job requires you to travel or work late some days. That all makes it very hard. And as an adult, if you have interests and hobbies and things you'd like to pursue, a lot of that time that you would use to improve yourself personally ends up going, the extra time that you do have ends up going to work. It could be things like a meeting, a networking event, something last minute, a project that's due and a launch that's coming up, and so now you have to work late. A lot of these things end up taking additional time and taking you away from you doing things that are important to you, you spending time with your family, and you building your own life. I know personally I've enjoyed art since I was in high school, even before that, really dabbling in drawing. And I just haven't had as much time as a working professional to devote to art. And it's hard. It's something that I miss very deeply, but the time that it takes me to unwind from work and pick up a paintbrush, get inspired, create a piece of art, take some time away from it, come back to it, there's just not enough time to do that when you are working and you have the demands of a job that's demanding. So what ends up happening, I end up deprioritizing some of these things that are important to me that I wouldn't normally feel the need to make a trade-off with, that I wouldn't normally feel like I have to choose. But when it comes to work and showing up and doing what you need to do and what you're contractually obligated to do, we feel like we need to take this as the first thing we do and everything else sits on the back burner. And there are a lot of other sacrifices that work forces you to make. But when I think about different areas of work that I've really had to deeply understand and spend time on, an area like AI, for example, to bridge the gaps, and because things were happening so quickly, I had to take my own evenings, I had to take my own time on the weekends, watch videos, read the news, stay up with what's happening in order to stay afloat and stay ahead in that space and in that area and to do my work well and to know if something is still relevant or not, if that context is accurate. That was the only way I could really do that, is to spend the extra time and devote that time. But of course, if I'm doing that in the evening, if I'm doing that on the weekend, that means something else is being compromised, something else that might be important to me, or someone else who's important to me is getting less time from me. There have been a lot of these types of sacrifices. I'm sure, you all have made some as well to advance yourself in your job, in your careers, and would love to hear what some of these are. Another big one for me is traveling. Spending so many years in consulting, I was on a plane every week for years. That meant showing up, being on site at the client, staying there 3 to 5 days a week, and rushing back on the weekend to try to fit in everything else I had to do and turn around and fly back again on Monday. And sometimes even fly out on Sunday if I knew bad weather was coming. These are huge sacrifices that not only impact your health, your family life, your well-being, your social life in your city, all these different things that might take a hit when you are feeling like you have to choose. So, should it be this way? That's the question. I think we all are so used to this being the way it is that we accept it as normal. We think this is what everyone is doing. And in fact, we see everyone doing it. So many colleagues are doing the same thing. If you look at leaders in your organization or in your industry, they're going through the same motions. And when it doesn't feel like it should be that way, or you're questioning it, or you're wondering, it's an odd feeling to have a different perspective on something when it seems like everyone else is looking at it in a different way. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know down in the comments, what kinds of things have you experienced that led to a change in you? What are some ways that you feel work made you choose differently? Things you probably wouldn't have chosen if you didn't have to or didn't feel like you have to? What are some of the choices and trade-offs you made that potentially impacted your personal life, family life, your own pursuits and interests and personal goals that you have for yourself? So let me know down in the comments. I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation. And if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one.